When she was a child, her parents had often taken her and Warren on picnics by the river. Evelyn had always looked forward to those trips, but then Aunt Isidore had arrived with the cousins. They, of course, then had to be included in the picnics and had ruined them for Evelyn with their taunts about her being a great whale floating in the river. These things were always said far enough away from the adults to be sure they were not overheard. Evelyn had taken less and less joy in swimming until she'd refused to do it at all. At least she'd not forgotten how. She'd swum for a bit and was now floating happily in the water, completely relaxed in the knowledge that her husband would be sure no one disturbed her. Evelyn had barely had that thought when she was suddenly caught under the arms and lifted out of the water. Evelyn almost screamed, but a glance down showed a pair of bandaged stumps poking out from under her arms, and she realized it was her husband. As quickly as that, those linen-covered stumps shifted her about, and she found herself clutched to his massive chest. Stunned and confused, she heard her husband shouting rather incoherently about drowning and devils as he ran out of the water with her. Evelyn tried to figure out what he was trying to tell her. Had his mother or father drowned just upriver as she'd bathed? Or had they been attacked and killed by some devils as she lay floating obliviously? Horror consumed her at the thought of either possibility befalling her lovely in-laws. Evelyn lay still against her husband's chest as he raced out of the water and began to crash through the woods. There was no mistaking the tension in the arms holding her tight to his chest. Her husband was in a panic. Payan did not seem the sort to panic easily, so Evelyn knew for a certainty that something was gravely wrong. The fact that he had not even paused to let her collect her gown was another sign of the gravity of the situation. It made her think that they must be under attack, for if the matter had to do with one of his parents drowning, she was quite sure he would not be racing through the woods, carrying his rather large and heavy, naked wife. Evelyn could have asked him what had occurred, but he had gone silent since dragging her out of the water, and she feared he might be trying to keep their whereabouts a secret if they were under attack. It did seem that she should not slow him down by making him attempt to talk while running, so she forced herself to remain still and silent in his arms. When they reached the campsite, Evelyn was suddenly mortified by her unclothed state. She noted the startled reactions of the men as Payan charged through with his naked bundle. It was obvious they had no idea what was going on. When Payan finally began to slow, Evelyn decided she might now ask what had occurred to cause this uproar, but before she could, Payan had lifted her and she was slammed down on her belly across the back of a horse, knocking the air out of her. A bare second passed before her husband was on the horse with her. One bare knee was inches from her face, the other brushing her legs and buttocks as he set the beast into a run. Any possibility for Evelyn to regain her breath died as she found herself slammed repeatedly into the horse's back. She was grunting with each jolt when she became aware of something pressing down firmly on her backside. It took only a moment for her to realize that it must be her husband's bandaged hand, placed there to hold her in place as he rode them to safety. Evelyn groaned between grunts as she realized her husband was riding her around in circles with her bare bottom up and in full view of the men. At that point, she determined that if their men did not kill whoever had attacked and caused all this uproar, she would surely do so herself. Evelyn soon became aware that her husband was speaking again. He was talking in low tones. Her head was closer to the drum of the horse's hooves than to his mouth, but still she could make out some words. They sounded like a cross between a curse and a prayer, or perhaps a plea and a rant. He was talking of someone named Adam, and telling whomever he was addressing that he couldn't take Evelyn like he had Adam. He was threatening whomever he was speaking to with dire consequences, and Evelyn was just beginning to think her husband mad when she caught the word God and realized it was their maker he was addressing. It was then that things began to gel in her head. It occurred to her that riding someone around strapped to the back of a horse was a common method to try to revive a drowning victim. Evelyn began to think that she may have misunderstood things. Perhaps Payan had not been shouting about his mother or father when he'd pulled her from the water. Perhaps he'd thought she had... Dear God, her husband had mistaken her floating for drowning. He was trying to save her life. Wasn't that just the sweetest thing in the world?